We're gonna remove all the wheels and do rotors and brake pads all around on the 2014 Maserati Granturismo. To do that, I'm gonna use a 22mm socket with a breaker bar to loosen them up. Then we'll get it jacked up, take tires off. We have the Mazzy up on the jacks now. We're gonna go ahead and get all 4 tires off so we can get to the rotors and calipers. 13mm socket. You just break them loose there, and then go ahead and take those out. There you go. I'll just keep that with my other hardware. All right, and we'll do that to each tire. They're the same in the rear. We can go back there and you can see that. So as you can see, they're the same in the rear here. And we'll just take all these off. Okay, so next we are gonna take off the bolt here for the caliper, and we're gonna knock out these 2 pins as well for the brake pads. And to get you a good angle on this, we're gonna go on the inside and show you where to break this. From the inside, there's the bolt head. It's a 13mm as well, so you're just gonna get your socket on there, and then you go ahead and break that loose right there and pull that out when you're all good. All right, now to get these pins out, we're gonna go ahead and use a punch. I got a steel 1/8 inch punch here. I'm gonna go ahead and line that up right on there. Give it a tap with the mallet. Make sure you stay in there so you're not getting it out. All right, tap that. We're gonna get the back one here, or the bottom one, I'm sorry. All right, go ahead and give that a push on the inside, and that pin slides right out. Slide that one out. Now, a lot of guys will say you can clean this. The service manual says not to reuse this hardware and to get more. My kit that I got on Top Euro for $1,100 for the front and rear comes with the hardware. So no reason not to use new stuff. So next, after we get all the hardware out, we get the bolt out of here, we get the 2 pins out, we're gonna go ahead and compress the calipers in. To get the pads out, we got to get the pistons in. So we're gonna put a towel over there. We're gonna put a clamp on the inside of the pad and on the outside of the caliper, and we'll crank that in, pull that in. Okay, and we're gonna move up to the top. Try to do that evenly here. You can see that the gap is getting better there, so we're going to go ahead and do that until they're all the way compressed in. So once you get those pushed in, you can go ahead and wiggle out your pad. There's the old pads on here that we're taking out. On the driver's side, you'll see there's your sensor wire. It's up here. It's connected. We're going to have to disconnect that and cut the zip tie to take that out. And with my pad set, new sensors came as well. Okay, so there's the brake sensor disconnect. You can see there's the snap clip, pulls that wire out, and then there's a metal slot on the side there that holds this on, so then this piece wiggles off here. Okay, so we have both the brake pads out, we have the sensor disconnected. We're on the driver's side tire here still. Now we've got to disconnect the brake caliper from the vehicle, and there's 2 bolts right here that are hex head, and it's size 10. All right, so those are in there pretty tight, so we're not using the socket. We're gonna break out our longer breaker bar so we can get these out. And there we go, she's breaking free now. Okay, so once you get those 2 bolts out, the brake caliper breaks loose, and we don't want to just let the brake caliper hang. So what I'm going to use are these nice little ties here. They're So while I was getting the first brake caliper off and started cleaning it up, UPS showed up with the new parts. So we're gonna go ahead and break this open and see what we got. Came in 3 boxes, so we'll see what's in each box here. All right, TopEuroMachine. Break this box out here. So this is a coated rotor. Don't use brake cleaning spray, it says on there. So let's open this up. All right. And we have a new rotor here. And it is drilled and slotted, just like the other ones that are on there now. So that's great. Looking good. Okay. Go ahead and open up other boxes. We only have 1 rotor in that box. We only got 3 boxes. So hopefully we got a little bit more in these other 2 boxes here. Oh, that's pretty cool. And this one, they gave us a little Maserati keychain, it looks like. Didn't order that, so that's kind of cool from them. Yeah, it's pretty nice Maserati keychain. It's metal. Very cool. That's a nice ad. Cheaper than the factory, and they throw in accessories. All right, let's see here. This one up here. Got another rotor, cross drilled and slotted again, so that's good. And then there's another box in here, so that's good. Another rotor. Open that up. All right, that's another cross drilled and slotted rotor. Final box. Put this up here. We got a packing sheet. And here we got boxes with the pads. Let's go ahead and open those up. All right. We got a sensor here. And we've got our hardware for 2 pads. As I said, we're not going to reuse that old hardware. These look like the rear hardware and pads. So we got 4 of the smaller pads with the sensor and the hardware, so that's good to go. And here we got the front pads, assuming, with the hardware. Yep, so we got the hardware here. We got 4 pins and 2 new brackets. We got 2 new sensors here with the larger brake pads for the front. We're going to go ahead and open one of these up. Quite a bit thicker than the ones I had on there, obviously. And they look to be OEM grade. I would say the rotors are a different finish, so we will see how those hold up in comparison to the OEM ones. They're supposed to be of same quality or better. Time will tell, and we will find out. We got 1 more box. Hopefully we have another cross-drilled slotted rotor in here. And we do. All right. Okay, onto the rear calipers now. They're a little bit different. Obviously, they're smaller. However, the back hex heads are still a 10 size. However, there's no center bolt here to deal with, so that makes it a little easier. Again, we're just going to use a 1/8 inch tap. And we're going to go ahead and tap that out. Okay, we're going to tap the other one out. Get those started. Now you should just be able to push on this here. Wiggle that through. A little little tighter. There we go. And that comes out. All right, so these bolts here are super tight again. So we are gonna put the breaker bar in. Get those loosened up. Not as bad as the front, but they're still pretty tight in there. There we go. All right, that's loosened up. And we're just gonna use a socket to get them the rest of the way out. So once you get these bolts loose, we're gonna take those out. All right. Get the caliper out. Okay, so the sensor on the brakes are up here on the control arm. I'm gonna try to do this where you can see it. There's a little prong right here that you pull down, and it just, the clamp comes right out, the wire, and then there's a metal bracket that the sensor connects to. We're gonna try to slide off here. All right, so we got the sensor off. Now we can go ahead and finish taking the rotors off, or sorry, the caliper off, get the rotor off, get the pads out of there and set those back. So we're gonna just hand loosen these up, take them out here. We're gonna make sure we catch the rotor. We don't wanna leave that hanging again. Pads are gonna come out. You got the sensor on that one. All right. There's a little tie on there, so we're gonna have to undo that. But learning from the back, we're gonna, or from the front, I mean, we're gonna slide my little wire keeper here through the bolt hole for the caliper, twist that around, and we're gonna get it up around the arm there and twist that as well. That holds it nice and tight in place. We don't have to worry about anything coming loose then. All right, and then that will just sit there. Now that spanner tool that I had fits in the back here perfectly because it's actually designed for a 4-piston. I want to get a 6-piston one, but there were none in the stores when I went out looking. And so next time I do this job, I'm gonna order one online, but this is supposed to fit right in here. And we're gonna test that theory out right now. It appears to be doing that. All right, so this spanner tool does fit in the back here a lot better. Allows you to equally spread open the brake piston, caliper pistons. So we're doing that right now. We're gonna open those bad boys up. Push them in. All right, and then we're gonna go ahead and just loosen that up. Out. There you go. And the pistons are pushed in, ready to go. We'll get this all cleaned up. We'll do this to the other side, front and back, and we'll start putting on the new hardware. And of course, take the rotor off here. Back one was a little stuck on there. Okay, so here you go. As you see the comparison there of the old OEM rear rotor to the Top Euro rear rotor that we're going to put on. It's got that different finish to it. It says not to use brake cleaner parts on it. We will see how that holds up, but overall, other than that, the quality of the rotor looks pretty good. So one addition on the back that we didn't have on the front is this additional holder right here for the sensor wire, and that is a 10 millimeter wrench. So we're gonna just unscrew that here. All right, it comes off. Open that up. I'll take the sensor out of there. Hold that aside, and there's our rear pads. Okay, so now we have all 4 rotors off, calipers off with the pads out, and we're just gonna get everything cleaned up a little bit more here before we go ahead and put on the new parts. But just wanna get a look at everything off. All the calipers are hanging with those gear tie hooks, which work great. And now we're just gonna get them all cleaned up. This is the front driver's side. We got everything cleaned up. Now we're gonna go ahead and get the new parts on and put it all back together. Okay, so we're gonna start putting together the front passenger side. We gotta get the pistons down even. They're not even right now. So I've got this spanner tool. We're gonna set this in here and tighten that up. Get that across the 2 top pistons, and then you just tighten out a wrench and it pushes those out equally. Then unfortunately I couldn't find one that would fit the 3 pistons, so we're going to use clamps down on the bottom here to push in the bottom ones. So we're going to use towels as to not mess up the paint on the calipers here. Gonna need 2 clamps, 1 for each side. I didn't have another small one, so unfortunately we're gonna use a large clamp here. All right, we're gonna clamp these bottom 2 down till they're in all the way flush. All right, so those are in flush now. And then we're just gonna crank the spacer bar here tight. Once it gets the one side in, then it starts dropping the other side in as well. Problem is you have to do these evenly. You can't let one out or the pressure will push out one piston while you're trying to do the other. So you can't just clamp one of these at a time. You have to have all 3 held equally in order to get these all flush. Okay, all right, so now they're all flush. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna back this off. That slides right out. Take the clamps off here. All right, clamps off. Go ahead and get a view in there. You can see that all of them are flush. And that's what you want. All right, so now that we got those flush, we're gonna go ahead and just drop the caliper down. Again, it's hanging on that tie hook. I loosened it up a little to clean it. We're gonna tighten that back up, hang that there, and then we're gonna go grab the rotor here now. Make sure you're obviously putting the front one on, as the rears are different, and you're gonna line this up here on the hub, and you're gonna want to make sure the small holes here line up to the small threaded hole. There's 5 of them. You're only gonna use 2. You've got those 2 bolts that came through, so we're just gonna reuse those. All right, we got her lined up. These get torqued to about 12 foot-pounds, 11.4 when you convert the 15.5 Newton meters. But for right now, to get everything in, we're just gonna go ahead and tighten these by hand. Okay. All right. And then once we get that off, We're gonna reuse our bolt hardware for the caliper, but with that, you need to use Loctite. I use the blue thread locker. It's for medium hold. You don't want to do the permanent hold. I have heard some people say not to reuse these bolts, but I did double check with the service department at Maserati, and they said when they do brake jobs, they do not replace these. They just reuse them. So we're going to reuse them, and the Maserati service manual says to use the Loctite, and that's what we're going to do. So put that on there. Get it nice and around bottom. I'm doing it on about the bottom inch because that's about how much into the control arm bracket there that they're going to go. So we're going to leave that on there, let those dry for a second while we get our caliper off the hanger hook here. All right, so we're going to pull that out. All right, and just move that out of the way in case we need that again. And then we're gonna line our rotor up. It should sit there nice and snug. I'm gonna grab our bolt here, and we're gonna feed that into the top. We're gonna tighten that down here by hand. Okay, then before we get that tight, we're gonna put the other one in, make sure that lines up. Up nice and tight. Okay, when I'm tightening these, I use my regular 3/8 ratchet just to get them down flush to the metal. Otherwise, I'll be cranking on them with my torque wrench for quite some while. So we go ahead and do that. We get that down. And then the Maserati service manual calls for 170 to 180 Newton meters of pressure. Which correlates to about 125 to 135 foot-pounds. So I have set my digital torque wrench here to 125 foot-pounds. So we're gonna go ahead and turn that on. We're set for 125. And we're gonna crank that down till we get where we need to be. Leave that on there, and then we'll clip the bottom one as well. All right, so we've got those torqued in nice and tight. Okay, now when installing the brake pads, we're gonna use Disc Brake Quiet by CRC. It's a red lubricant that you put on the back of the pad here. You don't wanna put it on the pad surface, only on the side that's gonna come in contact with the pistons and the caliper. This will stop the vibration, and that horrible squealing is the hope. So it says to apply it liberally to the whole back. So we're gonna swipe that on there, and then we're just gonna smooth that out with the finger. And it does say to let this dry about 10 minutes before you install the pads. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna take out some of the extra there. All right, we'll do that to both pads. We'll let it dry 10 minutes and then we'll put them in. All right, so we have the brake pads are tacky now. They've been drying for about 10 minutes, and then we're gonna go over the hardware. This comes with the Top Euro complete kit. I would note one difference with this over the OEM hardware is the OEM hardware has the nice little up arrow here. You don't have that on the Top Euro, but if you look at them, you can tell that the shorter end with the circle goes to the top, the longer end with the oval goes to the bottom. I've heard a few others say that doesn't matter, but the specs do have the shorter end going up. So that covers the hardware there. Now, there's no sensor on this side. Top Euro ships 2 sensors, so you have an extra one if you do pads again. But then you're gonna slide the pad in. You want the pad side towards the rotor and the plate side with the quiet towards the pistons. So we're gonna go ahead and slide both pad sets in. Nice and easy here. They sit right in there as long as you got those pistons nice and level. All right, and then you just go slide the hardware in here, and you grab one of the push pins and you slide that through. Again, it should get started pretty easy. You should be able to get it in by hand. We'll tap that again to seat it in there all the way. Then you gotta push down the other one. Get that lined up. All right, there you go. And then we've got our hammer and our tap. We can go ahead and tap those in. It's in nice and flush. I'll do the other one. And a little more. All right. Okay. And then you've got this bolt. You're going to slide that in, and that goes under the larger one. All right, and that slides nice and smooth in there. All right, and then we have this screw on the back, and now for this one, I'm going to use green thread locker, which is for a light lock, so it's not going to hold it too tight, but it's going to hold that in there. When it comes to brake parts, I think having it in there so it doesn't come out is always better. And we are gonna get that one in hand tight for right now. All right, and then that's a 13 millimeter, which we have handy here. Same size as the rotor bolts. So we're gonna tighten that up there. Just make sure that's snug. Okay, all right, now we're gonna torque the bolts on the rotor. And as I said, those get torqued to 11.4 foot-pounds. We're gonna go ahead and actually come in underneath here. There we go. Hold that in place, and then we will torque these down. It doesn't take much to get to 11.4. All right, there we go. Those are on. And now, as you can see, we've got a completed job there. Pads are in. We will tap in those pins a little bit more and then it's just putting the tires on. All right, so on the rear, you can see the pistons are now fully flush on the rear caliper. We're gonna go ahead and put on the rear rotor. All right, so same as front, we're just gonna slide this on here, and we're gonna line up those small holes to the rim bolt holes. There we go. Then we're gonna put in the rotor bolts by hand. Okay. Another one here, tighten by hand. One thing I would note is you have the bolts, the 5 lug nuts for the tire that also hold this on. So that's one of the reasons why this is a pretty low torque bolt, I think. All right, so we've got that on. We've got our 2 rotor bolts, or I'm sorry, our disc caliper bolts, and we're gonna take the caliper off now. The hook, we're gonna line that up here. All right, then we're gonna take our bolts with the blue Loctite on there and line those up and get those in finger tight. Okay, and we're gonna bottom one. Okay, now for torquing the rear ones, we are gonna be at 73.8 foot-pounds or 100 Newton meters. So it actually comes out to 73.8, and since I have a digital foot-pound torque wrench, I just put in the 73.8 in there. Get it in. There. All right, we're there on both. Okay, now this is locked in here, so we are going to go ahead and torque on our rotor at the same time, again about 11.4 foot-pounds. Get that. This is not much at all. Okay. All right. So that is all on. We are torqued. Now we just need to go ahead and put our brake pads in. We have the red brake quiet on there. So again, you're going to put the red side out towards the pistons and the brake pad in. Line those up. I'm going to go ahead and put the other one on. Okay. Grab our hardware. Now this one truly can go either way, so there is no up or down on this. We're going to go ahead and slide the pin in. Line that up. Okay, so we're gonna get those pins tapped in the back here. Tighter tolerances than the front. All right, so we got all of the pads in, rotors on, and the calipers back on in place. We've got the sensors in place for all 4 tires. Now all we're gonna have to do is get the tires on, drop her down, and take it for a test run. Everything looks really good. It's nice and clean, as you can see.